You are one decision, one shift in your energy, one breakthrough away from a completely different life. Wealth and happiness aren't reserved for the lucky, they rise for the people who learn how to unlock the power already inside them. Today you're going to learn how to attract abundance with ease, not by forcing life, but by finally aligning with who you were meant to be. When you want to attract wealth and happiness with ease, you have to begin by understanding something most people never realize. Your outer world is a mirror of your inner world. The results you get, the opportunities you meet, the relationships you build, the money that flows towards you or away from you, all of it starts with the emotional state you live in every day. Most people think they need to change their circumstances to finally feel powerful or confident or worthy, but that's backwards. You don't wait for life to give you permission to feel those emotions. You generate them. You create the state first, and the life you want begins to organize itself around that new level of energy. Think about it. Every moment of your life, you are conditioning your nervous system to live in a certain emotional pattern. Maybe that pattern is stress, anxiety, doubt, or hesitation. And when your body gets used to living in those emotions become your default. You wake up stressed, you go to work stressed, you make decisions stressed, and then you wonder why wealth feels difficult to attract, why happiness feels far away. But when you learn to master your state, when you learn to shift your energy, in an instant your world transforms just as fast. Wealth begins to feel natural, happiness begins to feel effortless. Everything starts with the energy you bring into the room, the moment, the decision. Your state is the foundation of your destiny. Every action you take, every belief you reinforce, every opportunity you pursue or ignore depends on your state. If you're in a low emotional state, you won't take action. You'll talk yourself out of your potential, you'll shrink, you'll hesitate. But when you raise your state, when you step into a place of certainty, gratitude, hunger, determination, you stop thinking about limitations and you start seeing possibilities. You stop asking, what if it goes wrong, and start asking, what if this is the moment everything changes? That shift, that single change in the questions you ask yourself can redirect the entire trajectory of your life. Most people think they need motivation to change their state. They think they need inspiration, a perfect plan, or some magical moment. But the truth is, your state can shift in seconds. You can change your breathing, your focus, your physiology, your movement, your voice, and instantly your emotions begin to shift with it. Because you're not your thoughts. You're the one who directs them. You're not your emotions. You're the one who commands them. When you take back control of your state, you take back control of your life. Wealth and happiness don't come from thinking about what's missing. They come from aligning yourself with what's possible. When you live in a powerful state, your brain doesn't operate in survival mode anymore. It's not scanning for danger, for failure, for what might break. Instead, it starts recognizing patterns, opportunities, connections, and solutions you never noticed before. It starts moving you toward the life you were meant to live. You become more resourceful, more creative, more courageous. You naturally take the actions that create momentum, and momentum is what attracts abundance. This isn't wishful thinking. This is you deciding that you will no longer allow the world to dictate how you feel. This is you becoming the source of your own certainty. Because the moment you realize you can choose your state, even when life hits you, even when things go wrong, even when everything around you seems chaotic, that's the moment you become unstoppable. That's the moment life begins to respond to you instead of the other way around. Imagine walking into every day with a state of clarity, gratitude, confidence, and purpose. Imagine how much more powerful your decisions become. Imagine how different your relationships feel. Imagine how much differently you approach your goals. You'd show up stronger, you'd speak with more certainty, you'd trust yourself more deeply. And when you trust yourself, wealth becomes a natural extension of who you are. Happiness becomes something you generate, not something you chase. This is where ease comes from. Not from sitting back and hoping, not from waiting for luck. Ease comes from alignment. When your internal energy aligns with the vision you hold for your life, your actions become more aligned. Your decisions become more aligned. Your habits become more aligned, and the world responds to that alignment. Shift your inner state, and your outer world follows. If you truly want to attract wealth and happiness with ease, then you have to confront one of the greatest truths about human behavior. Most of the limits you think are holding you back aren't real. They were installed. They were shaped by experiences, by environments, by people who didn't understand your potential. They live in your mind as stories, patterns, fears, assumptions, and because you've repeated them long enough, they feel true. But the moment you see them for what they really are, they lose their power. because nothing drains your potential more than a story you didn't choose. Every single person in this room has invisible limits operating in the background. And the crazy part, most people don't even know they're there. You want more wealth, but you have a story that says you're bad with money. You want happiness, but you carry a belief that says you don't deserve joy unless everything is perfect. You want to start a business, take a risk, change your life, but your nervous system is still wired to avoid uncertainty because at some point uncertainty meant pain. These patterns run your life until you interrupt them, challenge them, break them. You can't build a life of abundance while carrying beliefs built during moments of fear. You can't step into your future with the voice of your past deciding what's possible. That voice, the one that whispers doubt, hesitation, or fear, is not your truth. It's simply conditioning. It's a program. And like any program, it can be rewritten the moment you decide to take back control. The first step is awareness. You can't change what you can't see. You have to become aware of the patterns that show up the moment you try to grow. Pay attention to how your body reacts when an opportunity appears. Do you lean forward or pull back? Pay attention to the thoughts that come up when you imagine a bigger life. Do you feel expansion or resistance? Pay attention to the words you tell yourself when you're alone. Do they empower you or diminish you? These internal reactions are clues. They reveal where the old stories still live. They show you the invisible walls you keep bumping into but never question. And once you see those limits, you don't judge them, you challenge them, you disrupt them, you refuse to let them define the next chapter of your life. Because here's the truth, every belief you have is just a meaning you attach to an event. Maybe someone told you weren't smart enough. Maybe you tried something once and failed. Maybe life hit you hard at a time when you didn't have the tools to rise. But that was then. You're here now. You're stronger now. You understand more now. You have more capacity now. You are not the person who created that belief. You're the person who gets to rewrite it. When you break these invisible limits, everything shifts. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop shrinking to fit a life you've outgrown. You stop allowing doubt to run the show. You start accessing parts of yourself that you've never met: courage, creativity, certainty, hunger. And when those parts of you take the lead, your life begins to change with incredible speed. Because once your beliefs expand, your actions expand. And once your actions expand, your results expand. People think the breakthrough comes from the success, but the breakthrough happens before the success. It happens the moment you shatter the belief that says you can't. When you remove the internal blocks, the external world stops feeling like resistance and starts feeling like possibility. You move differently, you think differently, you make decisions differently. You stop letting fear be the loudest voice in your mind. You stop letting the past shape your future. You realize that the only limits that ever existed were the ones you accepted. And that's the moment you become dangerous, not to anyone else, but to the old version of you that settled, that hesitated, that doubted, that waited. That version starts to fade. And the version of you that was always capable, always powerful, always enough finally steps forward. That version attracts wealth not from desperation, but from certainty. It attracts happiness not from perfection, but from alignment. It attracts opportunities not from luck, but from clarity. Break the invisible limits, and the world opens. If you want to attract wealth and happiness with real ease, then at some point you have to raise your standards. Not your hopes, not your wishes, not the things you talk about when you're feeling inspired, your standards. Because your standards determine the quality of your decisions, and your decisions determine the quality of your life. People don't get what they want, they get what they're willing to tolerate. The moment you raise your standards, the moment you draw a line in the sand and say, I'm done living below what I'm capable of, everything starts to shift. Most people try to create change by setting goals. And there's nothing wrong with goals, but a goal without a new standard is just a dream waiting to fade. You can write it down, you can visualize it, you can talk about it, but if your identity stays the same, nothing moves. Real transformation begins when you stop asking, what do I want? And start asking, who must I become to create it? Because when you step into a stronger identity, your behavior follows automatically. You don't force discipline, you don't negotiate with your excuses, you don't hope for consistency. The identity you choose dictates the actions you take. If your standard is to live with average energy, you'll show up inconsistently. If your standard is to settle for emotional comfort, you'll avoid the very challenges that would make you grow. If your standard is to tolerate doubt or fear, you'll create a life that looks safe on the outside but feels empty on the inside. But when your standard becomes excellence, not perfection, but excellence. Everything you do begins to rise. Your thoughts rise, your habits rise, your language rises, your expectations rise, and your results start to reflect that rise. Raising your standards doesn't mean making your life harder. It means making your life more aligned. It means refusing to live below your potential for one more day. It means choosing to show up as the version of you who already has the wealth, the peace, the fulfillment you're seeking. You start acting from that place now, not later. Because when you wait for the result to act like that person, you stay stuck. But when you act like that person before the result shows up, the universe begins to meet you at that level. Think about the people you admire, the ones who seem to attract abundance almost effortlessly. It's not luck, it's identity. They've conditioned themselves to operate at a higher standard than most people are willing to. They don't dabble in their dreams, they commit. They don't hope for opportunities, they create them. They don't shrink when things get uncomfortable. They expand. And the reason they can do all this is because they've built an identity that supports the life they want. You can do the same. You can shift your identity by shifting your standards. Start by asking yourself, what am I no longer willing to tolerate? What behaviors, what patterns, what stories have no place in the life I'm creating? And then flip it. Ask, what must I demand for myself daily? How must I show up? What must I make non-negotiable? Because when something becomes non-negotiable, it becomes reality. When it's optional, it becomes an excuse. You attract wealth and happiness with ease when your standards make the path clear. You don't second guess. You don't indulge in the old patterns. You don't wait for motivation. You embody the identity. You make the choices. You take the actions. And those actions compound into results that feel almost automatic. That's the power of standards. They create systems. And those systems shape your destiny. The moment you raise your standards and align your identity with the life you truly want, the world stops resisting you and starts responding to you. If you want to attract wealth and happiness with ease, you must understand that nothing changes until you move. Nothing transforms until you take action that's aligned with the future you're trying to build. People talk themselves into believing that success is about knowing more, planning more, manifesting more, waiting for the right moment. But the truth is, wealth flows to those who step forward, not those who stand still. The universe responds to momentum, not hesitation. Massive, purposeful action is what turns desire into reality. You don't need the perfect strategy to begin. You don't need all the answers. You don't need confidence before you take the first step. Confidence is built through action, not contemplation. Every time you act, you gather evidence that you're capable. Every time you move, you weaken the fear that once held you hostage. Action is the antidote to doubt. It's the bridge between the life you have and the life you know you're meant for. Most people never experience their full potential because they let uncertainty paralyze them. They think, what if it doesn't work? But the real question is, what if staying where you are is the thing that costs you the most? Growth will always require movement. Expansion will always require boldness. Wealth will always require taking steps others aren't willing to take. You attract abundance by doing what most people avoid. You act despite fear, despite discomfort, despite not knowing the outcome. Purposeful action means you're not just moving, you're moving with intention. You're doing the things that align with the identity you're stepping into. You're solving problems. You're adding value. You're creating impact. Wealth doesn't show up because you want it. It shows up because you become valuable. You become resourceful. You become someone who brings solutions instead of excuses. That's when doors open. That's when the opportunities others dream about start finding their way to you. And here's the thing. Action creates clarity. When you're stuck in your head, everything feels confusing. Every choice feels heavy. Every step feels risky. But the moment you act, the fog lifts. You start seeing what works and what doesn't. You adjust. You refine. You grow. You evolve. Clarity is not something you wait for. It's something you generate through movement. When you take action, even imperfect action, life gives you feedback that you could never get by sitting still. The fastest way to attract wealth is to immerse yourself in purposeful momentum, not mindless busyness momentum. Momentum turns small wins into bigger wins. It turns ideas into outcomes. It turns effort into mastery. When you build momentum, your actions start compounding. What once felt difficult begins to feel natural. What once felt slow begins to feel automatic. And people around you begin to sense your energy, your certainty, your focus, and they respond to it. You've probably experienced moments in your life when you were on fire. You were locked in, you were consistent, you were doing the work. And during those moments, opportunities seemed to appear out of nowhere. That wasn't coincidence. That was momentum. That was alignment. That was you stepping into a version of yourself that wasn't waiting, hoping, or wishing, but creating. Purposeful action also means you stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop telling yourself you'll start tomorrow, or next week, or when things calm down. You stop giving power to the voice in your head that wants comfort over progress. You start making decisions based on the future you want, not the limitations you've carried. That's how you move from dreaming to doing. That's how you shift from wanting wealth to attracting it. And the beautiful part, the moment you commit to consistent action, ease begins to show up. Not because the path gets easier, but because you get stronger. You become more capable, more confident, more unstoppable. What used to intimidate you becomes normal. What used to feel overwhelming becomes routine. Ease comes from mastery, and mastery comes from repeated, committed action. Wealth and happiness don't come from waiting for the perfect moment. They come from creating momentum that makes the perfect moment irrelevant. If you truly want to attract wealth and happiness with ease, you have to understand the power of the emotional states you choose to live in. Gratitude, joy, appreciation, certainty, love, these aren't just nice feelings, they are magnets. They elevate your mind, shift your physiology, and open doors you didn't even know were in front of you. Most people try to create an extraordinary life while living in ordinary emotions. They're stressed, frustrated, overwhelmed, waiting for something external to make them feel good. But life doesn't work like that. Happiness doesn't show up because everything is perfect. Wealth doesn't flow because you finally catch a break. These things respond to who you are being on the inside. When you step into a state of gratitude, something incredible happens. You stop focusing on what's missing and start recognizing what's possible. The mind can't hold fear and gratitude at the same time. It can't hold anxiety and appreciation simultaneously. Gratitude dissolves the emotional weight that keeps you stuck. It raises your vibration. It brings you back into a place of clarity. Suddenly, the problems that felt massive shrink in size. The opportunities that were invisible become obvious. You begin to think differently, act differently, and show up differently, and that difference is what attracts abundance. People believe they need results to feel grateful, but that's backwards. You don't feel grateful because your life is great. Your life becomes great because you feel grateful. Gratitude is a discipline, a habit that trains your nervous system to operate from abundance rather than scarcity. It trains your mind to look for what's working instead of what's broken. And when you live in that energy long enough, your decisions stop coming from fear. They start coming from vision. They start coming from strength. When you combine gratitude with a genuine sense of abundance, your entire world shifts. Abundance doesn't mean you have everything. It means you recognize that there is more than enough, that possibilities are endless, that opportunities are available, that you are not fighting for scraps. Scarcity makes you shrink. Abundance makes you expand. Scarcity makes you operate from survival. Abundance makes you operate from creation, and creation is where wealth lives. Look at the moments in your life when you've been in a truly abundant state. You were generous. You were patient. You were confident. You were open. You weren't afraid to give, to try, to ask, to take a risk. That version of you attracts people. That version attracts ideas. That version attracts chances you couldn't find when you were stressed or fearful. People feel your energy before they hear your words. They respond to who you are, not what you want. And happiness, real happiness, isn't something you pursue. It's something you generate. It's the byproduct of living in alignment with your higher self. It comes from deciding that your emotional state is not for sale. It's not dependent on circumstances. It's not something you outsource. When you choose happiness as a practice, everything you do becomes lighter. Your relationships become richer. Your creativity expands. Your resilience strengthens. You stop waiting for life to get easier and instead become the person who moves through life with ease. One of the most powerful truths you can embrace is this: the emotional home you return to every day determines the quality of your life. If your emotional home is worry, you'll always find something to worry about. If your emotional home is frustration, you'll always find something that bothers you. But if your emotional home becomes gratitude, abundance, joy, and certainty, your life begins to reflect those states with remarkable accuracy. Your emotional home becomes your energetic signature, and that signature is what the world responds to. Building that emotional home requires repetition. You reinforce it through daily rituals. You reinforce it through the questions you ask yourself, through the meaning you attach to challenges, through the way you choose to breathe, move, and focus. Every moment is an opportunity to train your emotions or let them run wild. And when you start mastering your emotional state consistently, everything else becomes easier. Decisions become clearer. Opportunities flow more naturally. Wealth feels less like a chase and more like a partnership. This doesn't mean you ignore your challenges. It means you meet them from a higher state. When you're grounded in gratitude and abundance, you don't collapse when something goes wrong. You adapt. You rise. You respond with intelligence instead of fear. You become the kind of person who turns obstacles into breakthroughs. The kind of person who sees solutions faster than most people even recognize the problem. The kind of person who others want to work with, learn from, invest in, and grow beside. Wealth and happiness gravitate toward people who embody powerful emotions. Not because life favors them, but because they're operating from a place where they can see more, do more, give more, and create more. When your emotional state is elevated, your mind and spirit enter alignment, and ease becomes your new normal. Master the energy of gratitude and abundance, and life expands with you. If you truly want to attract wealth and happiness with ease, you need to understand something most people overlook. Success is not built on willpower alone. It's built on systems, structures that support the identity you're stepping into. When people say they want an extraordinary life but feel stuck, it's rarely because they lack desire. It's because their environment, their habits, and their daily rhythm are designed for the life they have, not the life they want. If you want a new level of success, you need a new system that makes winning your default instead of your struggle. Think about it. Every result you have right now, every dollar you've earned, every decision you've made, every pattern you repeat is a product of the systems running your life. Whether you built them intentionally or not, they're shaping your future every single day. Most people rely on motivation. They wait until they feel inspired, till they feel confident, till conditions feel right. But that's a losing strategy because motivation is inconsistent. Emotion's unpredictable. But a system is dependable. It works even when you don't feel like it. It carries you on the days you're tired, overwhelmed, or uncertain. A powerful life is built on powerful systems. It's built on rituals that prime your state every morning so you can show up strong. It's built on environments that pull you toward growth instead of dragging you back into old patterns. It's built on habits that align with your future, not your history. When your systems are aligned, success stops feeling like something you have to chase. It begins to flow. It begins to feel natural. Ease shows up not because you're doing less, but because you're no longer fighting yourself. The truth is, discipline becomes effortless when your environment supports it. Confidence becomes natural when your habits reinforce it. Progress becomes predictable when your daily actions compound instead of contradict each other. You don't rise to the level of your potential, you fall to the level of your systems. And if you want a new life, you have to build new foundations. Designing a system for success means taking control of three things: your state, your structure, and your standards. You create routines that elevate your energy, not drain it. You build habits that move you forward automatically, not sporadically. And you set standards that force you to stay aligned with the identity you're cultivating. When you blend all three, your life begins moving in the direction of your vision without needing emotional force every day. Look at the people who seem to win consistently. It's not luck. It's not superhuman discipline. It's structure. They have systems for growth, systems for wealth, systems for managing their mind, their energy, their focus. They don't wake up and hope they feel like doing the right thing. They've built a life where doing the right thing happens almost on autopilot, and that's the key: automation. When success becomes automated, ease becomes inevitable. Your brain loves patterns. It thrives on repetition. And once you build patterns that support your higher self, the old patterns that once sabotaged you lose their power. You stop falling back into procrastination. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop getting derailed by emotional dips. Because your system catches you, your system redirects you, your system reminds you who you're becoming. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is designing an environment that makes it hard to fail. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, create physical spaces that inspire you, remove temptations that pull you off track, add cues that trigger the actions you want to take. Because when your environment changes, your behavior follows. And when your behavior follows, your results accelerate. But the system isn't just external, it's internal too. You need mental systems, emotional systems, systems for how you interpret setbacks, how you respond to challenges, how you make decisions, how you handle stress. If you don't build these internal structures, your external ones won't hold. Life will throw things at you, unexpected moments will show up, stress will hit, but when your internal system is strong, nothing breaks you. You bend, you adjust, you adapt, and you keep moving forward. If life feels chaotic or overwhelming, it's not because you're incapable. It's because you're running your future with outdated systems. Upgrade the system, and your life upgrades with it. The habits you repeat become the results you live. The rituals you choose become the mindset you embody. The structure you build becomes the identity you grow into. When your systems align with your purpose, you no longer have to push your way to wealth or chase your way to happiness. You attract them. You become someone who naturally creates, naturally progresses, naturally grows. Ease becomes the byproduct of living in alignment. Because when your daily structure supports who you're becoming, success stops being an aspiration and becomes a predictable outcome. Design a life system that makes success inevitable.